the councilman.
Councilman, do you mind joining the council?
No, sir, I don't. I'll be right there.
Done, sir.
If you will, while they're getting this system set up over here, if you bow your heads, we'll have a word of prayer. Father, we thank you so much for this day and blessings, and we just thank you for watching over us and caring for us. And Father, we thank you for how you've blessed Wetumpka, how you continue to pour your blessings out upon us, and allow us to achieve the things that we've been looking for and wanting for so long. And we just pray, Father, that you would continue to open the doors and allow us to make the progress that you would have us make. Father, we ask you to give us the wisdom, give us the guidance that we need, that only comes from you as we direct this city and their business. We ask these things in Christ's name. Amen. Okay, this is the work session part of our program. And we're going, I know we're pushing our people here a little bit tonight, but we're going to go ahead and move on into, we're going to change this up somewhat. Recognition will be done in a later time in the meeting, but the presentation tonight by Retail Strategies for the retail marketing plan for the city of Wetumpka. And as soon as they get that squared away and in order, we will begin. If we're ready. Okay.
Good deal. Well, good evening. My name is Scott Von Cannon. I'm a portfolio director with Retail Strategies. If you're not familiar with our firm, we're a municipal consulting firm. We're based out of Birmingham, and we work with cities, economic development offices, and chambers of commerce throughout the country to help bring new business specifically geared towards retail to cities across the country. And we're extremely excited to be in partnership with Wetumpka. We officially joined into a partnership with the city a couple months ago, and throughout the last about 120 days, we have been creating basically a retail strategy for the city of Wetumpka. We've run hundreds of reports regarding data and analysis about who the consumers are here in Wetumpka, the buying power of the consumers here as well. We've also identified available real estate in Wetumpka to specifically market and gear towards, for the most part, national retailers that are growing, expanding, and looking for new sites. So our goal here is to make an environment here in Wetumpka fit for new retail, whether it's grocery or apparel or restaurants and so on. And that's specifically in a nutshell of exactly what we do. So we're going to share a few of the tidbits of our strategic plan, what the analysis is, why we run it. And again, it is, I will mention that there's a lot of data and statistics and analysis in here, so bear with me when we're talking about some numbers, because I can appreciate that is a very boring part of our process. But I will say communities like Wetumpka are all looking for new business, and specifically retail, for a few different reasons. Obviously, they want to boost the quality of life for the residents. They want more shopping options for the citizens in the community. Increasing the tax revenue for the city so they have the ability to work on other improvement projects throughout the community. You have the ability to increase your revenue by obviously bringing in new business, bringing in more shoppers to your area. Attracting the desired businesses. Everybody wants to see that Chick-fil-A or that Santa Fe steakhouse and so on. That's what our intentions are over a long period of time to hopefully do, is bring some of those entities that the consumers are asking for. And obviously there is a job creation aspect of this as well, of this portion as well. I think the city recognized that the communities don't really have the ability to go out and recruit retail. We have really specialized ourselves in this industry where we have a lot of contacts with the national retailers and developers across the southeast and the country, where a lot of retailers are limited on actually doing the proactive retail recruitment themselves. So again, thrilled to be here, excited to be in Wetumpka, and we expect very positive results over time. I apologize, I'm losing a little bit of that. Very word heavy here, but basically what this is telling us that there is a misconception that retail is not job creation. Actually, 1 in 4 jobs throughout the country are retail related, and the annual wages for a full-time retail job is about $38,000. So it's actually on par with other standard industries. So there's a big misconception on whether or not retail is actually economic development. We're strong proponents that it absolutely is. So just to give you an idea about our company, again, we're headquartered in Birmingham. We have an office in Fort Worth, Texas as well. Currently working in over 100 communities, so we have a very big stretch nationwide from Florida to California. Obviously, our hotbed is here in Alabama. That really allows us to see trends and patterns of national retailers, where they're growing, the kind of sites and communities they're looking for. This is a part of our team right here. My role is the portfolio director. We have a handful of actual retail recruiters as well, supported by our executive team, marketing, and our legal and accounting team as well. So again, at the end of the day, we want to make this community an environment right for new growth, more retail, more business, and so on. This is a great, really 30,000-foot view of our process, and we're kind of about midway throughout this. As mentioned, step 1 is that market analysis, and we're going to talk about what some of this data is, what it means, why we're running it, and what the data shows. Step 2 is really the strategic planning, and that's what we're looking at right now. As mentioned, we've conducted our what we call our boots on the ground tour of Wetumpka, identifying real estate that is fit for new growth, for new retail as well. With that plan, we execute that strategic plan, or our quote-unquote retail strategy, through proactive retail recruitment. So we have several members in our team, which Brandon leads one of our recruitment efforts here in Wetumpka, to reach out to the retailers we've identified do fit this market and fit the criteria as well. And again, at the end of the day, we're looking at new businesses, increased tax revenue, job creation, and improving the quality of life as well. So obviously, as I mentioned, a lot of this is data heavy. We are cross-referencing through over a dozen or half dozen national data providers, and this just gives you a brief list of who those data providers are, and we're also identifying market trends and retail trends as well. Gives you an idea on where all that information actually comes from, where they're sourcing this information. So obviously, pulling a lot of data and a lot of figures from several different entities out there as well. Discussing the actual research itself, this is basically just a quick rundown of some of the main reports that we are running, we have run about Wetumpka. So we're not looking at just bare demographics and growth, population figures, and so on. We're cell phone tracking data, which is a new analysis out there that actually identifies how people are moving around in communities. We customize our trade area analysis, which will look at what the actual trade area is of Wetumpka. Lifestyle segmentation actually puts people in different classifications depending on their hobbies, their interests, their demographic makeup, where they're located as well. Again, we're getting a lot of information on the consumers, what they're buying. The reason we do this is because national retailers have done a phenomenal job of identifying who their consumers are. So if we can prove that a lot of their consumers happen to exist in Wetumpka, or this greater trade area, we can tell a compelling story on why they need to be here. The gap analysis is a report that actually identifies dollars leaving Wetumpka on an annual basis. So where people might live in Wetumpka, but they are doing a lot of their shopping in Montgomery. If we can actually nail down those figures, again, we have a compelling reason on why maybe a grocery store or another restaurant needs to be here in Wetumpka. And then the peer analysis, our bottom one there, identifies peer communities that look a lot like Wetumpka on paper. Again, we can study the retail in these peer communities, identify retailers that are not currently located in Wetumpka, and again, tell a compelling story to the retailer themselves on why they need to be in this community. So again, we're going to look at some of the figures. I'm going to zip through this because again, it's a lot of data, so I don't want to spend too much time on the actual numbers itself. But when you think of Wetumpka, a lot of people think within the municipal boundaries. What does Wetumpka's makeup demographically or population-wise within the city limits? Retailers don't really think that way. They could care less about how many people or who specifically lives within the city boundaries of Wetumpka. We all know that people are shopping in Wetumpka that don't live in this area, so we want to identify what is that trade area, what is the distance people are driving coming into town to do their shopping and so on. This is, we have a lot of marketing materials and aerials and maps we create on behalf of the city of Wetumpka, and this is basically a population density map. So we can share this to a developer or retailer to identify where the dense portion of the population exists here in Wetumpka. You have a few different trade areas outlined here in the orange. I think that's a 5 and a 10-minute drive time from the city center of Wetumpka. And then those dots each represent about 100 households in the daytime population as well. We typically break out each one of our cities that we work in into 6 basic trade areas, and then again we identify several custom trade areas. As you can see, this is where we are. Wetumpka is from a 3, 5, and 10 mile radius, essentially a ring around the community from these different data points, and then running the demographics and several other reports as well. We can also, a lot of retailers nowadays aren't thinking of in radius rings. A lot of them are changing their gears towards what we call drive time maps. So if you literally are in downtown Wetumpka and driving 5 minutes in each direction, 10 minutes in each direction, 20 minutes in each direction, that's what some of this data is pulling. When you think about getting your coffee in the morning, you're typically thinking how many minutes it takes me to get to McDonald's or Burger King, not how many miles precisely it's taken. So again, the reason we're identifying, so you can see we've identified age levels, income levels, average home values, number of employees within those different trade areas, and so on. And the reason we identify multiple trade areas is because different retailers are going to want to know where Wetumpka is at a certain level. Someone like, for instance, Cabela's. I'll drive 2 hours to go to Cabela's, so they're going to want to look at what your trade area is on a very large standpoint, whereas a Starbucks or a McDonald's is really more concerned about the daytime traffic that's going right in front of their store every day. So again, identifying why we're looking at multiple different trade areas. So this is actually what we call mobile data collection. It's kind of a scary term to think about because it's very big brother-ish, but it's something that has hit the market as of recently. And this map actually specifically is identifying where people are coming from by the ability of tracking their cell phones. Anytime you download a free app, you probably don't realize this, but you're actually allowing big data companies to follow your whereabouts throughout the day. Very scary notion, I completely get it. But from a marketing standpoint, it's phenomenal information to prove that people are driving long distances to come to certain businesses and certain retailers here in town as well. This is, again, more identifying. We've identified a few different trade areas, custom trade areas. This is one right here. We'll talk about some of the reports that come from this. In some instances, if there's a big box retailer, we know people are driving well beyond this trade area here as well, but this is just one specific example. So within that particular trade area, we have one that's 45,000 people. So whereas marketing Wetumpka as a community of less than 10,000, we want to use figures like this because we believe that people are driving from this area to shop and so on. And then that breaks that population down into several other sub-factors as well. So we can also identify the ethnicity makeup as well as number of households within the market. It'll get cut off there, I apologize. And median household income levels, number of households, how they're broken up, whether it's 1, 2, or 3-person households as well. Again, I know it's a lot of data, but these retailers are very fascinated with this type of information. How the actual houses are broken up here as well, owner-occupied, renters, vacant housing units, and so on. So that's actually breaking down that figure per unit as well. There's your daytime population figures, very important for a lot of quick service restaurants and so on that are more concerned with how many cars are in the area, how many people are within the area during the day, whereas you might be looking at a full service restaurant where they're really catered towards the night crowd, and they're more concerned with how many housetops are within maybe a 10 or a 20-minute drive time. So that's actually breaking down that custom trade area. As you can see, we have about 34,000 people on average daytime population there. as well. We can break it down by employee salary, and again, this can get pretty redundant. You can see we can identify educational attainment. So please keep in mind, we want this information out to entrepreneurs in the area, business owners in the area. We're going to use it obviously to hopefully entice businesses to come to the area, but if you do own a business or you're an entrepreneur and some of this information can be helpful for you, we absolutely want to share it because we've been able to help several entrepreneurs in our client cities provide this information, whether it's a gentleman that always wanted to open up a sporting goods shop and there wasn't one in town. If we can identify what the consumer buying power is for sporting goods in an area through our reports, we want to share that with that individual and so on. The next report I'm going to talk about is what's called tapestry segmentation or psychographics. I know that's quite a mouthful. But as I mentioned earlier, this identifies who the consumers are in an area and actually gives them classifications. So everybody in this room falls under one or several tapestry groups, depending on, again, your demographic makeup, where you're from, what you spend your money on, your hobbies, activities, and so on. And the reason we run these reports, there are 67 distinct groups nationwide. The reason we run these reports is because a lot of these retailers now are identifying, again, who their consumers are, what kind of leisure activities they like to do. If we can prove that X amount of consumers happen to be in this area, we have a very good reason on why that retailer needs to locate here in Wetumpka. This is actually breaking out the top 6 categories. As you can see, Middleburg's there, they all have some kind of funky name associated to that individual. Family foundations, midlife constants, rural bypasses, you can see actually how those are broken down. And I believe this was from a 20-minute drive time. So by no means is one of those tapestry groups your entire community, but just a small portion of it as well. So this is a brief example of who that Middleburg person is. You can see it identifies how many households there are nationwide, the average household size, median age, income levels, and then you have a market profile looking at leisure activities and so on. So if we know there are a lot of hunters or a lot of fishermen in this area, it'd be great information to share to a hunting store or a fishing store and so on. And you can see, again, extremely in-depth, detailed information that we can use to share with retailers interested in the market. So focus categories, talk a little bit about what our gap analysis is. I mentioned earlier the gap analysis identifies dollars leaving Wetumpka on an annual basis. So again, if we can prove that so many dollars are going to Montgomery or elsewhere, we might have a good case on why that particular retail category needs to open up a shop here in Wetumpka. So as you can see here, this actually breaks down the categories in Wetumpka by each category. Our overwhelming one actually falls under general merchandise, which is obviously a very generic category. But people, for instance, if someone is leaving town and they're shopping at Target in Montgomery, that's going to fall under this general merchandise stores. You can see clothing and clothing accessory stores, food and beverage, health and personal care, full service restaurants, automotive parts, furniture, limited service eating, and electronic and appliance stores are the overall main categories where we are seeing leakage. So again, these are actually dollars leaving Wetumpka on an annual basis. Now, by no means do we have the ability to plug each of these numbers. Our goal is to really chip away at the dollars leaving this community. And what we see in a lot of markets is the problem is people are leaving this community to pick up goods and services that are not currently offered in Wetumpka per se. The issue is while they're currently out of this community, they're also picking up goods and services that are also offered here. So if we can plug in some of these gap numbers through recruiting, maybe an apparel store or a grocery store or another restaurant, it will prevent people from leaving the municipal boundaries here and keep those dollars local here in Wetumpka as opposed to going to Montgomery or elsewhere. This is really just a brief snapshot of that peer analysis. Again, identifying communities that look, at least on paper, very similar to Wetumpka. And we've studied all the retail and all these peer communities so we can identify trends and patterns of maybe other restaurants, other grocery stores, other apparel stores that are in communities that look a lot like Wetumpka on paper. And again, create a very compelling story on why they need to be in Wetumpka. This is actually comparing the city of Wetumpka in green to those peer communities, so you can see a lot of similarities on what currently is in the market: automotive, clothing and accessories, food and dining, grocery and supermarkets, and so on. This is how you are stacking up with those peer communities on what is currently offered here in the market. These are four, not the only, but four, probably the main categories that we are focusing on, and a lot of that has been driven by some of the analysis that we've run, due to the gap analysis that we ran, the peer analysis that we ran as well. That helps us identify those four main categories, but again, obviously, we go well beyond those four categories as well. Sometimes the data tells us one thing, but our gut and the market tells us something else. We have intuition that comes from years in the commercial real estate business, and we bring that intuition to our client cities. So, our company, Retail Strategies, has lived in the commercial real estate world for a long time, and that's really where we came from. That allows us to have the relationships that we do with these retailers, with developers, and commercial real estate brokers as well. So the whole point of this quote right here is that the data is the data. It is what it is. Again, retailers do put a lot of emphasis in the numbers, but it's everything beyond that that really brings our value to our client cities. The data is not going to get a retailer necessarily to your community. It might intrigue them about your community, but is very much so a commercial real estate function. So identifying what kind of building that retailer is looking for. Are they looking to build on raw land, or do they want to find existing vacant shopping center space? Do they need 1,200 square feet to backfill, or are they looking for a larger 30,000 square foot space? So again, the data is very important, but we're big proponents on understanding the retail and using our intuition on identifying retailers that need to be in this market and elsewhere. So boots on the ground, I apologize again, that's being cut off a little bit up top. We conducted a boots on the ground tour a couple months ago. Again, spending a lot of time in the market identifying areas throughout Wetumpka that are set for retail. We catalog internally several properties. We reach out to a lot of the local landlords and brokers and developers in the area to let them know who we are, why we're here, and most importantly, how they can lean on us as a resource. We want to help out anybody that's looking to, whether it's develop land or lease an existing shopping center space, as long as it fits the parameters that we know fit for these retailers. That's our role here. We want to connect the dots and make things happen. So just a brief list of some of the information that we do pick up when we are conducting our boots on the ground tour, identifying obviously the locations, ownership, brokerage, and so on. And then we actually assign kind of a little mini strategic plan for several of these sites. You kind of get an idea. We've identified over 16 sites throughout Wetumpka, and this is property analysis at the top here. So again, we have a lot of aerials like we're looking at here, and I apologize. I know it's horizontal the way Wetumpka happens to be laid out. It's very vertical, so it's hard on a horizontal screen. But when we are meeting with retailers or developers, they want to know what retail currently is offered and currently is located in Wetumpka. They want to know who their competition is, and also what clustering opportunities there are as well. When I say clustering opportunities, I mean there's no coincidence that CVS and Walgreens end up on corners right across the street from one another. And McDonald's, Burger King, and Wendy's are right down the street from them. They all want to be as close to competition as possible in most cases. So we want to let them know who's here, what available space, and where we can plug a retailer potentially interested in this community. And we'll also identify areas for new development, new growth, whether we have someone like Aldi, for instance, which is a growing, expanding grocery store. They're only gonna buy land. They're only gonna build a new building. So if we have a great, fancy, existing building for Aldi, never in a million years are they going to go to that site, because they want to build a new store, and they conduct what we call build-to-suit developments, and they're going to do it on raw land. So again, going back to why we need to identify what is available and what fits the parameters for these retailers. So we've identified some zones throughout the area for potential redevelopment and or new development opportunities as well. So we'll move on. So Time to source and open a retailer in a new market takes approximately 18 to 36 months. I won't read the entire quote there, but basically what we're getting at is it's a long process. There are a lot of pieces to put together in a puzzle. There are a lot of players involved as well. There is a misconception that you can't pick up the phone, call Chick-fil-A, and they'll be here by next Friday. And I wish that was the case because it'd make my job a heck of a lot easier. But again, there are a lot of pieces put together, a lot of players involved, from engineers to attorneys to landowners to brokers to developers to the retailers themselves. We might have the best site in the world for Jimmy John's or Chick-fil-A, but if Jimmy John's is only looking to open up stores in California and the Carolinas and New York in 2016, we want to focus our efforts on retailers that are trying to grow specifically in Alabama. Not that we want to take someone like Jimmy John's off our radar, but we are focusing on retailers that are growing, expanding, looking for sites, and looking specifically here in Alabama. And again, it is a long process. This talks a little bit about some of those categories. We've identified several prospects here in town under apparel. You have some small shop space, more boutique retailers that will take a smaller footprint, like 1,200 square feet, whereas you have some larger retailers that we've identified that we're reaching out to that might look to take 20, 30,000 square feet. Some general merchandise stores falls under that as well. You've got some smaller space guys like Dollar General and Family Dollar that are closer to 10, 12,000 square feet, and someone like, obviously a Walmart is going to be a very large platform. So we see a lot of growth in really both of those categories. A lot of the apparel stores look for shopping center space, whereas maybe a general merchandise store would actually lay down an independent building themselves. The restaurant is really the majority of where we're seeing a lot of the growth nationally. About 40% of all new retail growth falls under the restaurant category. I know there's a big demand and desire for new restaurants here in Wetumpka, and we're excited about reaching out to a lot of these entities. Fast casual is probably the fastest growing sector within restaurants. And when I say the fast casual category, that's your Panera Bread, your Moe's, Southwest Burritos, Jimmy John's, and Firehouse. Not quite the full service restaurant, but not fast food either, somewhere in between. We're seeing a lot of growth just nationally in that specific category. So obviously that will be a focus along with full service restaurant as well. So implementation plans. I love this graph. This is us in the middle. And for those that can't see it, we have retailers on top, community leaders, property owners, developers, and local brokers as well. So this shows we are basically bringing several entities together to make this an environment conducive for new business growth, retail growth, and so on. So I tell a lot of people that we talk to, we're kind of the Match.com of the retail world. We're finding sites and property owners, and we're also identifying retailers that are growing, and we're matching those two individuals together to bring more business to town. This is an example of basically a marketing flyer that we use to market your community. Obviously, you see Birmingham on there, not Wetumpka. We've currently just recreated our marketing flyers here and working on Wetumpka's as we speak. But gives, and I know, again, I apologize, it's kind of hard to see, but it's a brief snapshot of the community. When we're talking with retailers at these trade shows, and we attend about 20 to 25 retail trade shows a year on behalf of our clients, we need to get across the point very quickly on why they need to be in Wetumpka. So this is a snapshot of who this community is the consumers, income levels, population figures, growth patterns, and on the backside is actually that aerial of all of Wetumpka, and then we can narrow them down to specific sites. So when we're in a one-on-one meeting with the Dunkin' Donuts or Outback Steakhouse, if we can intrigue them and get them interested in Wetumpka, the next question they're going to ask us is, okay, Scott, where do you put me here in town? And that's exactly what this allows us to do. A brief rundown of some of the trade shows that we do attend each year on behalf of our clients. Obviously, a lot of the ones in the Southeast are going to be the most relevant here for Wetumpka. Atlanta has a trade show every year. Las Vegas is really the big one, over about 40,000 attendees each year, which occurs in May. We're actually getting ready for that show as we speak right now. So we have probably over 250 300 meetings specifically at the 2.5-day trade show in Vegas on behalf of our clients. Again, sitting down one-on-one with these retailers to market this community. So Wetumpka is definitely being marketed on a national and in some instances an international standpoint as well. So just again, a short list of some of those shows that we're attending every single year. You can see we purchase a booth at pretty much all these trade shows. I think this is our one in either Dallas or this might be Las Vegas last year. You can see that's actually our old brand. We've recently rebranded our company. We have a big booth, several tables set down. Brandon and several members of our retail recruitment team are the guys sitting down one-on-one with the retailers we have already identified that are fit for this market, and again, trying to sell this community. So kind of strategy update, where we are moving forward. We've completed our retail strategy for Wetumpka. We've gathered the analysis. We've identified the prospects in the property, and our next step and what we have recently done is executed that plan. So we're going to continue to improve our efforts to maximize the potential of retail in this community, appropriately position the community, update the city leaders on the latest, what's going on in retail. And we are the research concierge as well. So as I mentioned earlier, we have the ability to run on-demand reporting. So if there's any analysis that we can identify that does fall under the retail world, hopefully we have the ability to assist, and we absolutely want to be that concierge with the ability to provide. So that kind of concludes the retail strategy. If there are any questions, I'll be glad. If we have time for questions, I'll be glad to answer it.
We can take a couple. I have one.
Okay.
What makes Wetumpka an easy sell? And then what makes Wetumpka a difficult sell?
I'll start with difficult. When you run a quick demographic report of Wetumpka, the numbers are small. Like I mentioned earlier, there's actually a lot of retail here for a town of under 10,000. I've visited hundreds of communities throughout the country, and I do tell our communities to focus on the good, because there's a decent amount of retail here. Now, we definitely believe there is opportunity for more, and that's why we're here. Your strongest suit, in my opinion, is the traffic you get on the highway. Personally, I've been to Wetumpka several times, but not with a business mindset. So the first time I came down here to meet with the city and Lisa, I was amazed at the amount of traffic I saw out on the highway. So that's by far and away your strongest suit.
Anyone else?
Yeah, we have, as you go down 231, we've got one strip mall that is largely looks abandoned. It's terrible when the anchor store is Kentucky Fried Chicken. But what do you foresee, if anything at all, in your experience that would go there? I know, and you just said that many times folks want to build their own supermarket,
Sure.
especially.
Sure.
So nobody really wants that empty supermarket. What do you see?
Well, on the flip side, it's the complete opposite. There are a lot of retailers that are looking specifically for second and third generational space, and that comes down to what they're able to pay in rent. It's obviously a lot cheaper to find an existing building and to lease space in an existing building as opposed to building your own new storefront. And a lot of the retailers on our prospect list are second generational retailers. So our goal is to find space for them that fits their criteria and try to get them to this market. Anybody else? Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much. Again, we're beyond thrilled to be in a partnership with the city. I'm going to leave, Brandon and I will leave some cards out here, so if y'all want to contact us at a later date via email or phone call, we'd love to talk to you. Thank you very much.
To the Economic Development Board, to the Planning Board members that are here, when we sat down with them some months ago, because Wetumpka had never had anything put together and compiled that gave us all these numbers and all this data that put it under one umbrella, that when someone comes to us and starts asking us the questions, we always had to say, well, okay, we'll find out. we'll find out. And that's what Lisa has had to do. But some few years back, this same organization did some work for Elmore County as a whole. And we benefited from some of that. But now we're seeing all of these numbers compiled that gives us what we need when someone starts asking questions and has an interest, that we know where to go pull it out and hand it to them and say, okay, this is what we know. So that's.
I have a specific question. Exactly what kind of a contract does this company have with the city of Wetumpka? What are they tasked to do?
Well, our contract has us here for, I believe, a couple of years. And our role is to really be looked at as the economic development arm focusing 100% on retail. So that's the way we like to look at ourselves is, whereas you could potentially have someone in-house focused on retail, we have made our name in this industry by essentially being experts in the retail world, just due to our working with national retailers and developers and brokers as well. So at the end of the day, we want to be a phenomenal partner to the city of Wetumpka, and we want to make this a conducive environment for growth and for retail. We want to be the best partner in any way we can, whether that's providing information to a local citizen to help them potentially grow a business here in the community or help an entrepreneur, or bring in a retailer that we believe the citizens and the consumers do want in the market. So at the end of the day, we just want to be the best partner to the city that we can, and that is catered a little bit within each of our clients. A lot of our clients do have different ways in which we can be the best client for them.
Okay, so we are, I'm on the city planning board.
Okay.
So, and I'm also a downtown property owner. We are embarking on a downtown development plan now.
Yes, ma'am.
How you have, everything you've said tonight is all couched in terms of national retail.
Sure.
Are you prepared to also be a marketing arm for downtown?
Absolutely. We've already started working on downtown. We actually already have a business that is eyeing the downtown area. So just naturally, we came from the shopping center development world, so naturally our connections, and the reason a lot of cities want to hire us is because they have a hard time getting into the national retailers, the restaurants, and so on. But again, if we want to work with regional efforts and local entities as well, if we can bring in a regional restaurant to downtown, and if we have the ability to help out, absolutely. It's absolutely what we want to do.
Thank you.
Well,
Hey, Jerry, I have one question. You said you focus 100% on the retail market. What about those opportunities that you're missing in the non-retail market?
like which ones?
Entertainment. If you're focusing 100% on any particular thing, this
Sure.
is retail.
Sure. Well, retail is just, again, where we come from. We'll have a lot of clients and cities ask us about our input on industrial recruitment. And just frankly, we're a retail company. We focus on restaurants and clothing and even hotels in some instance. And that can bleed a little bit into entertainment. And again, at the end of the day, we want to be the best partner to the city. So if we have any kind of resources in-house that can assist with entertainment growth, we want to be able to do that. But we also don't want to market ourselves as something we're not. And we're definitely, retail is just the world we live in. It's what we consider ourselves experts as, and that's where we like to be comfortable in.
Yeah, you have time for one more. All right. Thank you. Appreciate your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, there's going to be a presentation, recognition. Councilman Jones? Yes. Chief Willis?
Continuing education is always important in any kind of job that you do, and Chief Willis is always involved in continuing education. He's got contacts all over the United States. I think you got good friends in Chicago, right? The Chicago Fire. I've been watching the show for a couple of years to see if I could spot you on that, but I haven't seen you yet, so I know you're working on that. But it pleasures me greatly to be able to give this to you tonight from the United States Fire Administration National Fire Academy in recognition of successful completion of requisite courses of study and applied research projects. The National Fire Academy, under the authority granted by the 111th Congress of the United States of America, and on the recommendation of the faculty, confers the title of Executive Fire Officer upon Gregory Allen Willis, with all honors, privileges, and responsibilities thereunto appertaining, awarded this 11th day of December, 2015. Take one without my glasses on. Boy, can come up here and get in the picture.
Joy, you want somebody else to take that picture?
Oh, got real.
Joy, come up. Up by you.
It's not moving, he can't capture it.
Politically incorrect, let's say this.
Congratulations.
Okay, the invocation this evening will be given by Councilman Roberts.